We're going to help give clarity, structure, and a path forward to men so that they can build purpose and seek out purpose for themselves so they can take it, channel it, and live a wonderful life. Because I want that for men. I want men to live a life worth living and a life worth bringing somebody else along for the ride to build strong families. Because men of purpose, men of action are much more attractive to women that are looking for a mate to support and to come alongside with. So, why so many men can't find their purpose? I think that in a lot of ways, we have a male identity crisis going on in the United States and across first world countries across the globe. The rise of feminism that's kind of taken both sexes and put on this false narrative of blank slate equalism, as if they are interchangeable cogs in the great machine. And all the scripts that were the normal scripts of the past, right? Go to college, get a job, get a family, retire, get your gold watch, and call it good. It doesn't exist nowadays. It's not like you're going to work for a company for 50 years as the norm, right? It is an exception to the rule, but we're not talking about exceptions. We're talking about, hey, what is a normative track for men to fall into for them to go on and lead happy and successful lives, right? Other roadmaps are things like a craftsman was a defined roadmap for men in the past, right? So if you were to be like your town's blacksmith, you would apprentice with the town's blacksmith and you'd serve him for a number of years until you got skills, abilities, and talents to run the blacksmithery on it your own while the master got to recline or got to work on other things. And then eventually, when he retired, you can take on that role for the city.
You work yourself out of a job.
Yeah, and that's the natural stream of things is you had men coming into the trade and men retiring out of the trade after they've successfully done their thing throughout their life, right? And that exists in the skilled trades. Most of the skilled trades have a licensing and certification program that's instituted by whatever state that you're in to get you through that process, but it's not one of those lifelong endeavors like it was in the past. And I would say that nowadays, one's career and profession is less indicative of your overall life than it was in times past. Right? Because it was more something that defined your identity back then and less so now.
Yeah, I mean, that's even when the peasant common folk started having surnames. It became like Baker, Miller,
Black, and Smith.
Yep.
Right?
That's how it was. It was literally built into your identity in your very name.
Right. If you were of the commoner class. That makes sense. Yep. Because your family's profession defined what your surname was. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And in order for you to escape that, you had to join the merchant class or you had to do any number of things. Join the soldier class would be a thing that you can get into to rise to notoriety by doing some act of valor or providing exceptional service to the local nobility or whatever. But that's an interesting concept to dig into.
Yeah.
Something for another podcast. But these fundamental scripts don't exist in our world the same way that it did in times past.
And even the remnants that do exist, like you do need a certain amount of hours of apprenticeship and stuff for skilled labor.
Right.
There are not enough people to take the place of the ones that are retiring out.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept, right? Because there's a lot of like boomers and other generations that are that have like small businesses and don't have somebody to go ahead and continue on. And they haven't built it in such a way where it has value other than like with themselves running it. This is a very common thing that's going on right now, where I think that a lot of enterprising young people that are willing to go ahead and step up, there's a huge opportunity out there to be able to go ahead and take on these businesses. Like once you go ahead and put 5 years in or something like that, and you show yourself to go ahead and have the ability to lead the organization. Because the thing is, a lot of these small family businesses have like 10, 15 employees or something like that, where they depend on the business for their livelihood. Mm-hmm. And it would be really sad if the owner retires or doesn't want to go ahead and put the time to it anymore because they just don't have the energy or wherewithal to make it happen. And then all of a sudden, those 10 to 15 families don't have incomes and they got to go find it somewhere else.
Yeah.
In an increasingly difficult job market that will go ahead and get worse and worse as AI goes ahead and replaces a lot of white collar jobs and other low skilled tasks. And so somebody that's enterprising and is willing to put in 5 years to make it happen could go ahead and feasibly make a solid offer to these owners that are desperately trying to retire, but then feel guilty that if they retire, they're going to go ahead and cause problems for their employees. Like, I think that would be a good two-way blessing, right?
I think it's going to be especially difficult on people in our generation. They, especially you're talking about the rise of AI and stuff, that people that have done these white collar jobs, because when we were high school into college age, we were sold that same lie. You go to college, you get a degree, you study hard and you get good grades so you can get a good job. And, so you're not not scrubbing toilets, but like plunging toilets or, doing HVAC or whatever, because that was like the less than.
Right. And say that was the wrong way of looking at it.
It definitely was. We were sold this lie. And now a lot of these people in our generation are like in the middle kind of establishing careers, and they might come across in the next 10 years or so that their jobs are replaceable by AI. And I don't know if you remember my stepdad.
Okay.
Like, he got laid off from his job and he was too young to...
In printing.
Yeah. In the printing business where it was all computerized now. And he was
too young to retire, too old to train into something else.
It's like, this is what he knew. I think that might happen to people in our generation.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's happening to people that are in the younger generation too, because even in something like computer engineering, right? Something that people thought was a fairly safe kind of thing. It's getting to the point where they're graduating with 4-year degrees and then they're going to look for a job, and then all the roles that they would have been able to fill even 2 years prior were replaced with AI. And they're like, oh, well, all the things that you could do that we'd have to spend all this time teaching you how to do it, we could just have the AIs do it. So what else do you bring to the table? And so they're going through college thinking that they have a career lined up for them. And bam, they get out of college, they've got all this student loan debt, and they find out that the job prospects that they were sold was a lie. Or at least wasn't an intentional lie, it just lacked foresight. So I'll go ahead and say that reel back, because this idea of AI replacing those jobs was incomprehensible 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Except for by the minority of people that were really into it, right?
Yes.
The early adopters and the people that were kind of leading the charge on this in the first place. Whereas I would say that for the vast majority of people, the idea of AI replacing all these jobs 3 years ago is something that most people had no conception of.
Or even if they did hear about it, it was too cracked to really pay attention to.
Right. But all of this to say that a lot of the scripts from the past are things that don't really exist today, and leads men to have to go ahead and either find scripts that do stand the test of time, right? Or to go ahead and create a script of their own, right? And I think that either of those two paths are relatively difficult in the modern age, right? The finding the pathways of old, right? Like, for example, growing in a way that you are in line with Scripture is a tried and true kind of blueprint. But even nowadays, we have so many interpretations of what that looks like that there's people that are confused about what that looks like. And especially with all the feminism that's been creeping into the church, and even the Church of England went ahead and put their first archbishop into office like a couple weeks ago. That's crazy to me.
It gasted a lot of people's flabbers.
Well, yeah, I imagine that there's going to be huge schisms going on in the Church of England. I cannot imagine that that's going to be something that's going to be a long-term thing. It's one of those things where it is a sign of the time. It is the sign of like DEI and, oh, we want to go ahead and make sure that we're making a mark by showing that we're letting equality happen for everybody. But the thing is, there are prescribed roles in Scripture, and that is not one of them. And at some point, that pendulum's going to swing the other way, and we're going to go ahead and usher in full-on patriarchy. I'm down for that, but I think a lot of people are not down for that, right? Because I would prefer a society where men know how to be men. Because, shoot, even in the Pauline epistles, Paul would just say, hey, get up, be men. that implied that they knew what that meant.
Yeah, they already had an idea.
They already had an idea that there was a script that was for them to tell them that which is man and how to be a man. Whereas nowadays, the whole reason why we're having this podcast in the first place is because people have no clue how to do this. And with so many single mother households, there's no dad to go ahead and take them along and be like, all right, son, we're going to do this. Or what are you interested in? Let's go ahead and find programs for you to go ahead and get technical competency. Like as soon as our boy is 16, he's going to go ahead and learn how to be an apartment maintenance tech. He's going to get like his fingers deep in the various skilled trades so that he has a skill to fall back on, right? And competency to go ahead and develop, because competency is the thing that is the foundation of confidence.
Pretty much everywhere, I am fairly certain that if you have a young 15, 16, 18-year-old boy who wants to learn a skill and wants to apprentice for an artisan or a master of any trade, they are welcomed with open arms.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Any young man with a good work ethic who just is teachable. That's it. That's all you have to do. All you have to do is show up and learn.
Sure. Well, and the thing is,
it's that simple.
Right, but solid character is so hard to find nowadays that when you go ahead and show yourself to have solid character, that is the thing that opens up doors for so many people. Like, I swear that I would not have had anywhere near the opportunities that I had in my life if I didn't show the people that were above me as I was seeking to go up in life that I was worth investing in, and that I cared enough about the process and serving them in their capacity that it made sense, because it was a win-win, right? It made sense for them to go ahead and hand off some of their knowledge to me like a relay race, right? Because life in a lot of ways is a relay race, because there's all these cyclical things that happen in life, right? As I get older, I need to find people behind me to go ahead and help do the things that I was doing before that still matter in society. If this message resonated with you, I'll ask that you go ahead and hit the subscribe button below so that you can go ahead and get more. And I ask that you send this message to someone who could benefit from it. I hope you have a fantastic day.